Welcome to Sunrise Life, the podcast where we have deep conversations with freelance models. Today, I have Diana Jean on the line. Say hello, Diana.
Hello.
Diana and I both lived in Seattle at the same time for a long period of time, so I've been aware of her and met her in person, and Diana's really awesome, and I'm really
Thanks.
happy to have you here.
Yeah, I think we first met I think at a Starbucks in a Safeway. That's my memory.
Oh, yeah. I do remember that.
I was like, Christy knows what she's doing. Let me talk to Christy.
Oh, gee, thanks. I wonder what gave you that impression.
I mean, I think you've always been, I was going to say hustler, but I mean hustler in the sense that like you work. Like, I think a lot of freelance models don't necessarily treat it like a job, you know? And
Yeah,
especially when we started like 10 years ago, this was not a thing. Like this was a very small community. And I mean like, do you remember I threw model parties for a while?
yeah,
I
yeah,
just 'cause like, there weren't that many of us doing it. It felt like it was a great idea for everyone to meet. Like not just for like safety reasons, but just like camaraderie, you know?
yeah, totally. I really enjoyed those, especially the wardrobe swap part.
Wardrobe swap part. I think I have photos still of model pyramid. I think we got
Oh my
everyone to do a
God!
pyramid in my kitchen, and you were at the top because you're the tiniest.
I remember that now. Wow. Okay, yeah. I, now I'm remembering that we did that. I have to find that photo and put it somewhere.
Yeah, I don't know where it is either. I'm like not the greatest with data management
Yeah, it's a struggle.
for sure.
I bet you it's like in my email inbox as an attachment or something.
Yeah, I can't remember whose camera it was on. I think it was Carolyn's.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I'll hit her up about that. That's so cool. As another model in the industry, when I look at your page and I see what you're posting, beyond like all the cool art reference sets that you make and sell, which I think is totally awesome and you're super consistent at that, I've always looked to your story on Instagram as a source of inspiration and knowledge for what's going on in the world as far as justice.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I love when people tell me that. Like I obviously my Instagram is like geared towards modeling because that's like my job. But
Yeah,
being like a pseudo news blog makes me so happy.
that's cool. And I like that it seems like you don't give a fuck about what people perceive as far as you posting your modeling next to like your opinions on your Instagram story. Like you're just yourself. And I can
Yeah.
tell that you're really passionate about it.
I mean, yeah, I think it's part of modeling for me has always been the freedom to do whatever the fuck I want and just be myself. In a lot of ways, I have not taken modeling to the career level it could be. Because, like, I've never toured, you know? I've done modeling all over the world because I was there. Like, I was going to travel for, like, myself and then booked modeling work while I was there. And so, I mean, I'm definitely a work to live kind of person rather than a live to work. And my Instagram just reflects, like, who I am in general. My feed is definitely like posted modeling photos and art model photos, but yeah, my stories you definitely get unfiltered Diana.
I love it. I really like, I feel like I can learn from that a little bit when you say that you work to live, not live to work. I don't think I've heard somebody say it quite like that before. I feel like I could take some notes on that.
Yeah, I mean, I've been complaining to my boyfriend that I've worked every day for the last like I think like 2.5, 3 weeks, except for like 2 days off, and that's too busy for me. I don't want to work that much, but
Wow.
sometimes you do. That's all.
So the mantra that I've been kind of like skating on for a while that I'm starting to want not like eliminate, but maybe redefine, as I say, 1,000 hours worked for yourself is better than 1 hour worked for somebody else.
Hell yes, dude. Hell yes. Yeah, I mean, like, I have always been a very self-directed person, and I don't really like being told what to do. Not in like a like
Word.
model sense of like move your head, but like a just a life directional sense. And having to go to work at like a regular job every day sounds
Have you had other jobs like that in the past?
kind of not really. In the last 10 years, I've had like very small part-time jobs that I was mostly like, I was getting paid, but I was doing it to like help someone else out. My friend has a house cleaning business. I helped her like reorganize her company and do some management stuff, and also, house cleaned on a pretty regular basis. And I do have a part-time job, but again, I photograph apartments. Like I show up
Oh,
with a camera and whenever I want to schedule it and no one tells me what to do, then I leave.
that's nice. And it's also a bit creative too because you get to shoot photos.
Yeah, and I mean, I moved to San Francisco 2 years ago to be with my boyfriend who started a company here, so it wasn't really an option for us to be together and be in Seattle. Could be in
Mhm.
separate cities, but like my entire network was in Seattle, and moving to San
Mhm.
Francisco, there is not the same amount of modeling work. I think everyone that's doing creative stuff doesn't live in the not everyone, but generalizing, people live in LA instead of the Bay Area. And there's this like real like get work, get money, get out attitude, and especially San Francisco. People like this. I feel like Seattle, the tech world really funds the arts. People do their
Mhm.
tech work and then they like want to do photography, or they're also a fashion designer, or they start like a music label. And I just don't find that to be true in San Francisco.
Oh, really?
Hmm.
Hmm. It's been a while since I was down there.
Right, because there's no modeling work.
I used to do really well down there, but if I look back and if I'm truly honest with myself, at least 50% of the people that I was working with on the trips that I was really successful in San Francisco were just like, hotel shoots where the photographer's keeping it a secret from their wife type thing.
Word, yeah. I
Yeah.
don't think that I really appeal to those photographers anymore. Because, I've done tons and tons and tons of those, but I don't know. I don't know what it is, but like I do not get hired for those jobs anymore.
Is that relieving, or would you
You
take a
know,
gig here or there?
I I mean like honestly, any gig anyone wants to get me as long as it's like safe and in my comfort zone, like hire me. Like I'll be naked in a hotel room. That's totally fine with me. But I will say
Cool.
doing more art modeling. Like, I graduated college for fine art and then didn't want a real job, like a regular job. And I mean, really, like when you graduate with an arts degree, like your bachelor's degree is not going to work for you so far. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to get a coffee shop job or something like that. And I started modeling because in my mind it was going to like leave me time and space to like pursue painting.
Mhm.
And so to have this like circle back of now I mostly work with artists and I can make like good money doing that has been like so heartwarming, and really I feel like I've found like what I always really wanted to do in the modeling world. If we're being honest, like working with artists is so much better in so many ways. I feel like art I mean, like you have to have found this to be true too. So many photographers want to like haggle your rates, and they have this like lofty like ego about how like you couldn't be a model without photographers like them, versus
Mhm.
artists are like, "Did I pay you enough money? Is that I'm so grateful for what you do. Thank you so much. Like your work is such an inspiration, and I mean like it's so nice."
I agree. I've felt both of those personalities many times as well.
And I mean, like,
And
obviously that's a generalization. There's lots of
yeah,
wonderful, benevolent, like, generous photographers out there too.
yeah. So when you say artists, do you mean people that are going to take your picture so that they can paint or draw it, or people who are sketch drawing you?
Um, yes, and also people who buy my reference photos. So in 2020, I led a figure drawing class for 8 years before the pandemic hit and before I moved to San Francisco. And in 2020, I was like, shit, no one can go to figure drawing. Like everyone is bored as fuck. I'm gonna start like shooting photos of myself to sell to artists, to paint and draw. Someone I know that buys them regularly, uses them for inspiration to write poetry. A few other people buy them and do like digital manipulation stuff. So so that's mostly it. I don't really sit for artists that often anymore. And every once in a while, I'll do a photo shoot with an artist.
Then there's photographers who have like an idea of their photography that kind of goes beyond the girls standing next to
Oh
trees or
yeah,
like pretty portrait type stuff.
totally. I mean, like, not to say that photographers aren't artists because they are in their own right. It's hard for me to distinguish like painter, like illustrator versus photographer,
Hmm.
just with like language. But yeah, no, you definitely photography is also an art, and photographers are
Photography is an
artists.
art. I guess the lines are kind of blurred, and I guess it depends on who's defining it and how they define what art is. Because if you're thinking of photography like you're documenting something, like, oh, this is what you look like at this time with this lighting.
I still think that's art. Like, anything creative that you're pursuing, I think has artistic merit. And I've had this conversation with, I mean, I was talking to a photographer who also is a like coder recently. And I think that you can, like, there's an artfulness to comes with like creating code, Like, you could make dinner and that can be artful. Like, the act of creating, I think, has artistic elements, merit, like what whatever you may call it. Like
Yeah, that is
the
true.
technical side of photography, even if you're not like composing the whole photo, the image, whatever's in your frame, is still like, a creative skill you have to learn.
It's true, true that. My boyfriend does plumbing design, and so he's drawing pipes in a computer program. And he says that he's like in a flow state when he's doing that, and he loves doing it. And it's like a creative space for him. And I'm like, well, drawing pipe, yeah, I guess you're drawing and you're creating something. So
Totally,
yeah.
exactly.
So you started. You're around the same age as me, I
Yeah,
believe.
I'm 34.
What age did you? 34. Yeah, I'm okay. I'm 35. You started modeling at what age?
I was 21. Like I said, I graduated college and was like, shit, I need to make money and I don't want a job. And I don't really remember because again, like back then, like no one really like there wasn't Instagram. Facebook was like for like it's still for old people mostly. And uh I didn't really excuse me, know about freelance modeling. I just started modeling for artists, like painting classes or whatever. And I think that how I like ended up on like Model Mayhem was some artists also worked with Sierra Mackenzie, and
Hmm.
Sierra was another person I was like, "Oh damn, they know what they're doing. I'm gonna copy them." And then like started working with photographers and doing the Model Mayhem thing, built myself a website.
I was also very inspired by Sierra, especially back then.
Yeah, I don't know that they do much modeling anymore, but yeah, I mean Sierra killed it. They were like the it person for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder what they're up to now.
I think they live in,
Haven't checked on.
yeah, I don't know. They moved away from Seattle too.
Oh, okay. So having other models as an inspiration kind of like gave you some ideas?
Oh, definitely. I think Sierra and Rant were the two people that I was like, they're not just like modeling and doing it like in a professional like career kind of way, but they're both like really creative. and I want to
Mhm.
work with photographers they work with. I'm not kidding you. Like, I looked at Sierra's website and was like, I'm copying this. And like, I've talked to her about that. I don't think I mean, it wasn't a problem for her. I'm happy to have any model want to copy what I'm doing. Like, get it, do you. But like, probably a year ago, I wrote the longest thing I've ever written, and I was in the IB program in high school. Like, I've wrote like 20-page essays regularly, but it's a 40-page document on how to be a model and how to make money doing it. And
Nice.
I mean, I'll send it to any model who wants to get into it.
That's awesome. Maybe I can include a little link to that in the description of the
Sure,
podcast.
yeah.
When it comes to like maintaining your inspiration, because I kind of want to go back to like you work to live, not live to work, and I'm still fascinated by that. So I want to circle back a little
Sure.
bit. Do you find that like in what you're doing with like your creative skills and like your creativity today, do you feel like you have an amount of fulfillment within that?
Yeah. I mean, creatively speaking, I mean, like, I could paint more. That was always my first love, and I don't do it very often. But creating reference photos for artists is definitely a creative thing. But yeah, I don't know if I feel like artistically fulfilled presently. But I mean, like, I don't know. I really love my life. I think my life is great. I am very happy. And like I said, like, I feel like creativity comes out in different ways. Like, I fucking love food, and like, I cook every night, almost every night. Food brings me so much joy, and there's definitely creativity in doing that too.
Part of the reason I asked that is because I used to also paint and like draw and like, pencils, charcoals. I sculpted
Cool.
when I was a kid
Yeah.
up until about 5th or 6th grade. And then I kind of just have sort of been in different cycles of addiction and things that have distracted me from that for the rest of my life, like video games, running around and partying, and then just kind of like being sort of just so involved in a relationship and then making money that I'm not doing those things again. And I do feel like I am creative in other ways, but I think that I judge myself based on the fact that I haven't drawn a picture or painted a painting in so long.
That's too bad. You should get back into it. I feel you though.
Adding to the pressure.
I mean, like, for me, starting a painting or even like putting aside the time to sit down in front of it is, I don't want to say overwhelming, but it's such a process to start, and I have to be in like such a specific headspace to do it. And honestly, I don't paint that often when my boyfriend's home. If he's out of town, I can sit and like paint for 6 hours, but I don't really want to be interrupted. you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And I like the silence. I haven't painted super seriously in a while. I think I probably make like 2 or 3 pieces of art a year.
I mean, that's pretty good to me, I think. That's cool. That's awesome.
Working with so many painters and illustrators now, though, I'm like, damn, like, I need to pump more shit out. Or like Caitlin Hubner. Do you? I
Yeah.
mean, like, I remember reaching out to them probably, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, and being like, "You're the only person I know who like professionally paints and is also a model. Can we hang out, please?"
Cool.
And I love Cat. Like, they're a whirlwind of a
I
human, and it's great.
I actually had only known Catlin, Catlin
I'm
on the internet. I We were only acquainted over social media, and so much so that I had thought that we met in real life, but I don't know if we did or not. And I bumped into her, like almost literally face to face, bumped into her or to them on the sidewalk. And Catlin recognized me and was like, "Christy?"
Christy.
And I was like, "What, Cat?" And we just talked for like 5 minutes on the sidewalk. It was completely random, and I was visiting because I had been traveling, so it was like one of those disorienting, like, oh, I know you on the internet.
That's really fun. I don't think I've ever come across someone I haven't met on like the streets that I follow online, but I love that. Especially is because like, the model community is tight and like especially those of us who've been doing it for 10 years.
So, when it comes to modeling for you, I know that you've used modeling as an outlet for your creativity, but obviously, if you're doing it for an income, there's probably a lot of gigs that you take just because
Oh,
of
hell
their
yeah.
income.
Of course.
What type of work do you really like, and then which ones do you feel like work?
I mean, I anything that has like creative direction, if it's like clothed, if it's partially clothed, if it's nude, as long as like the photographer has like an idea of what they want to do and it's not just like pretty girl turning in circles. Those photo shoots, I mean, like fuck, like it's been 15 minutes and it feels like an hour and a half. And it's just it feels like it's so much more work because it's like dance monkey dance, and those photographers always seem to like need like a therapy session. It's either they need to talk about their problems or it's like listen to how great I think I am.
Yeah,
Those feel like work.
yeah, yeah. I It's funny because sometimes when I'm describing this archetype character of photographer that treats models like their naked therapist, they're like, "Really? Is that common?" And I'm like, "Yes, it's
Yes, very
common.
common.
It's extremely common.
Definitely.
It's painfully common." There are a lot of lonely people out there.
And to some degree, when it's not the guys with the massive egos, I think are the worst for me because they're also not interesting. You know what I mean? Like someone who wants to have a therapy session, at least I feel like I'm getting to know like the inner psyche of someone and that's interesting to me. It's like
Yeah.
anthropologically interesting. But the people that are just like, I'm the shit, and like listen to me talk about how like I've been a photographer for 15 years and I'm published all over the world, and it's like,
Ugh.
Gary, you work in an office and you barely know how to take photos. Like, sure, you've been okay.
Yeah, and at least when they're treating you like you're their therapist, it means that they value your reaction or your response to what they're saying.
Yeah,
They're looking forward to hearing what you have to say about it, and they're engaged with you.
yeah. There's some amount of respect there.
Yeah. Even if it's kind of like a weird scenario to put you in, there is more of a we're kind of on an equal playing field conversation
Yeah,
than the other type
even
of
if their photography
guy.
sucks and the photo shoot is like whatever, it's like it's mildly more interesting. But no, I get like really
Yeah.
into it and like time goes by very quickly if I'm working with someone who has some kind of like creative direction to what they're doing.
Awesome. This kind of leads into one of those questions that I ask every model on the show. Can you think of and if you need to take a moment to think of a good story, you just take your time because I can edit the spaces.
Okay.
Can you think of a time where you had a shoot? It's called the photo shoot fail of the week, where the scenario was fucked up for some reason or the photographer was out of line. Like, what's one out of line or crazy photo shoot story that you could share?
Okay, I have to include a disclaimer here because in this episode, both of us who are actively using the photographer in question's first and last name, and I don't want to get sued, so unfortunately, I have to bleep it out. But if you are curious about who this was, you can feel free to send me a message anywhere on social media or an email.
I don't have a lot of these. I think I project like a don't fuck with me attitude and like the way that I talk to photographers even online is like very professional and very to the point. And so I think a lot of photographers who are, you know, maybe even unaware that they are taking advantage of people, but they don't always have the best intentions. I think those people for the most part stay away from me. But
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember Roger Barnstead being like around like 10 years ago in Seattle, 12 years ago in Seattle?
Yeah, I think
Yeah, I
Roger.
think that was it. He was a huge piece of shit, and I
Yeah.
I don't think I realized it. I like shot with him a lot, and I don't think I realized it until he took his clothes off at a photo shoot. We were shooting at a
Mm.
spa,
Oh my
and
god.
we had like a private room, and we took a break, and he took all of his clothes off and got in the hot tub, and I was like, excuse me? No. And I mean, like, I was pretty polite about it. I was like, hey, if this is part of your creative process, you should have let me know beforehand because just doing this in the middle of a photo shoot is not okay. And I think,
Mhm.
he was like really put off by that and embarrassed. And he hired me once again and he was going to like the Art Institute of Seattle and he had one of his like peers come, who was a woman, come and be at the photo shoot. And I don't think I shot with him again. And another model reached out to me and she was like, "Hi, I see that you've shot with Roger. He sexually assaulted me, and I just want to know if like you had any like experiences like that with him." And I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" Like, not surprised. I'm not surprised by that at all. Like, let me like anything I can do to like help your situation. She was a paralegal, and I don't think that like Roger like knew that. But like, she knows lawyers. She
Mhm.
works with lawyers, so she was going to do something about it. But then looking back on it, I realized that like he was filming everything. Like he was filming taking my clothes off and like in a changing room, and that like my first nude photo shoot was with him. So this is not something that I was like super comfortable with yet. And uh yeah, super predatory person. I was pretty disappointed. There was another model that I won't name in Seattle who like came to his defense because I like publicly blasted him everywhere. I reached out to the Art Institute and was like, "Hey, do you know that he's doing these like massage videos where he gets naked and comes on a model and is doing this all under the guise of shooting this as art for his class at the Art Institute?" He dropped out. I don't think they kicked him out, but I assumed that someone had a conversation with him and he dropped out.
Oh.
Yeah, like I went hard. I was like, fuck this guy.
There are multiple people who had bad situations with him that I've heard of.
Not surprising.
And I worked with him
Yeah.
too, because I didn't know about any of this stuff for a long
Yeah.
time. And then when I heard rumors back then, I was like, is this rumor true? But it's still income for me. Before I was really like, in a community of safety with other
Yeah.
models and didn't really have that like sense of camaraderie. It was more like I'm a lone wolf just trying to pay my bills type thing.
Yeah. That's why I was trying to do like the model parties because I was like, hey, let's all talk about like the experiences we've had and the people that we've worked with because there's Roger Barnsteads of the world out there.
I usually bleep names out if like, but I'm like, this information I believe is publicly available. Is that true? Like,
I mean, I don't know because this was like 10 plus years ago, and I know that after that he started a studio in Seattle under a different name, and I showed up to it to work with another photographer and he was there and I was like, I'm not coming in the studio unless he like leaves. Like I'm not trying to see this guy. I'm not trying to be in his presence. And I mean the photographer got him to leave, but I was like anxious in that space the whole time. So I don't know if like he's out there doing stuff. I don't know if he's still hiring models. I
I know that he's changed his alias on Model Mayhem and on Instagram a handful of times,
Yeah, not surprising.
and that's always a red flag when they always change their names.
Yeah, and like the model that came to his defense was like he's a really kind person who's helped me out and he just does like really kinky stuff and I'm okay with that. And I was like, that's fine. You're also a seasoned model who knows what they're doing and how to set boundaries, and you do like sex work, erotic work. But when he's like pulling in unknowing brand new models to this. I mean, the woman who reached out to me was like, he he got me to sign a model release before anything started that I didn't really read. He got me drunk. Um,
Hmm.
I was nude on a table where his friend was taking photos of him massaging me. Both of them are fully nude. And then he rubbed his penis between my butt crack until he came on me. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? You had no idea this was going to happen. Might have been in the model release, but like model releases are standard. And I don't think that most people like scroll through like 2 or 3 pages to be like, this is exactly what's in this. I mean, I scanned them now, but like, I don't think I mean, we live in a world where there's releases everywhere. And like, do you read the whole thing when like Google's like, we have a policy update?
Yeah, no, I never read any of that stuff.
But I think that we all show up to a photo shoot that's not described as being sexual to not have someone ejaculate on you. Like, that's not a normal
Right.
expectation.
That is not a normal expectation. That is, very valid. And it shouldn't. And I think it's definitely good that the modeling community has become more inclusive towards other models. It doesn't feel like we're so much.
No, I've never felt that way. Like, to think that one photographer is only going to shoot with you, I think is unrealistic and kind of naive. And to be
Yeah,
able to
totally.
like recommend people that you know that are professional and like we can like build each other up is part of what I think is really amazing about the freelance community versus like the agency community.
Yes. Have you
And
ever
like
done any agency stuff?
I had an agent in Seattle for acting for like 10 years.
Oh,
I feel like I've really modeled the breadth of like modeling work. The only thing that I haven't really ever done is erotic modeling, but, like, I've been in Mercedes commercials. My face was on, like, the walls of LensCrafters for a while, and I still do, like, commercial modeling.
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun, and it's a completely different world, and honestly, actors are kind of dumb and assholes, and I strongly prefer to work with freelance models.
Oh, that's good to
Yeah.
know. Well, I wasn't thinking of getting. People have suggested that I get into acting, and it's never really drawn me.
I mean, I've been in like feature length films and stuff like that, but the things that pay the most money are commercials where like you probably don't even have any lines. Or you do and they're very
Yeah.
simple. I think the only other like bad experience that comes to mind that happened more recently, I think it was like just barely pre-pandemic, is I showed up to a photo shoot and this man was like pretty immediately saying derogatory things about other races and like immigrants and Jewish people. And this is like, I will argue with someone. Like, if you're being an asshole and saying things like that at a photo shoot, um, I, I, I didn't feel unsafe, you know, but I think that it's important to advocate for those people in the moment. And so, like, I'm just like, dude, you can't call people the Jews. Like, that sounds really derogatory. And like, the way you're talking about immigrants isn't nice. Like, and just like kind of like laid into him, and it was supposed to be a 3-hour shoot and he called it after 30 minutes because I think he was like, I don't want to work with this person. I'm like, great, cool, have a nice day, you are a white supremacist and I will be letting people
What a jerk. Fuck that
know.
guy.
And he was another one when like you show up and he's like, do you want to drink, do you want to smoke some weed, and I'm like, no. No.
Some people, they assume that you might have the same opinion as them, or they don't give a shit about what your ideologies are, and they just want to dump all of their like extremist ideologies on you. Sounds like that kind of person.
Absolutely. Yeah, looking for camaraderie and I'm like, no. I know I'm like very, very pale and white, but like, hell no, dude. You don't know anything about me and I will lay into you.
Yeah. Well, good. Good on you. A lot of people might just kind of try to get through the shoot, try to get paid at the end, and like
Yeah.
smile and nod or whatever, because those situations are awkward.
they're awkward and like I don't expect everyone to react the way that I do. I, not to say that like someone who does that is like weak, but I do because that's not how I feel about anyone at all. Like if you're uncomfortable, either leave or like do whatever you can to like just get through the situation, get your money and get out. But for me, I just can't. I can't listen to that kind of shit and not say something. I've been, as I think, like many adults call children precocious, and I mean, like I hesitate to say argumentative, but like I won hella awards in high school for debate. Like I am articulate. I will shut you down, and especially like intolerant behavior like that. I can't not say something. That's just like in my personality.
And somebody who's that like upfront and obvious about their own racism, you wouldn't want to be in their portfolio anyway.
Hell no. And again, he's a GWC. He's like shooting in an empty bedroom in his house on like a wrinkled like white backdrop, and I'm just like a pretty girl naked, turning in circles. And I mean, like, because I was so upset, I'm probably like bright red and like sweating because I'm just like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, I'm uncomfortable and mad, and like, I'm sure I don't look good right now.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, and you didn't miss out on that extra $200 or whatever it was.
Oh no, he also paid me my full rate. Like he paid for the 3 hours and was like, "I'm good after 30 minutes," and I
Oh,
was like, "Great, fuck you."
bonus. Even
I
better.
mean, like, yeah, in that situation where someone like wants to end a shoot early, I'm like, I don't care. You owe me for the 3 hours. You booked me for 3 hours. You will pay me for 3 hours.
Wow, nice. Good on you.
Again, like, I don't know if it's like a no shame thing or just like being a very bold person. Also, like, this photo shoot sucked. Give me the money you owe me.
Yeah,
That's why I'm here.
yeah. He probably had it budgeted anyway, and it's his own fault for ruining the mood by being a racist at you.
Yeah, I mean, this guy lived in like like Richmond neighborhood in a shoreline with like a massive fucking house with an ocean view. Like he can afford it.
Oh my god, I know who that is.
Yeah?
I know he okay, I forget who he is, but he's some weird guy who like lives in his parents' house or something like that.
Oh shit, really?
I don't know if he lives in his parents' house or he has his parents' money, but he wears just like a sweater and sweatpants and he's really like nasty and is it he lives in like North Shoreline or Linwood or something like that and multiple other people have told me about him saying racist stuff immediately as soon as they get into the house.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I mean like I know that someone told me that Astrid shot with him, but
Yeah.
like I don't know her, and so I didn't like reach out and be like, "Hey, so what was your experience?" But
Yeah,
someone told me they were, and she also was like, "Fuck this guy."
Astrid said that he had looked at her nationality on Model Mayhem and saw that she was like a German and wanted to talk
Oh,
about that kind of stuff with her
icky.
as if she was on his side and
Yeah,
she was really turned off by it and thought that that was completely bizarre.
yeah, yeah, dude. Poor assumption, my man. Poor assumption.
Yeah, and I think that I shot with that photographer. I don't even remember his name, honestly, but I
Me
shot with
either.
him once and I think that he might have like made a political like side comment, but we mostly just talked about me being sober and I was just trying to convince him that I'm not going to smoke weed in the other room with him and that was kind of the topic of my
Yeah,
shoot with him because he had like liquor bottles everywhere and he was offering me drinks
yeah.
and he kept on going into the other room to go smoke weed and I was like uh yeah, not interested.
Go smoke your weed and waste your time, and I don't like modeling for you, so have at it, my dude.
Yeah. I wonder if he still shoots. That guy was weird.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like we when we talk about like shitty photographers, and I feel like it's almost always around like predatory behavior. But there's those guys too, where like you're actually a piece of shit, and like you're not looking to like touch. I mean, like I'm sure given the opportunity, he probably would, but he's not like laying hands on models. He's just being racist.
Yeah. Yeah, that guy's out of line for sure. Yeah, wouldn't I hope that he hasn't posted photos of me anywhere, but I don't really have
I'm
the
sure he didn't. Yeah, of me because they weren't good.
That's funny. I after you described where he lived and what his house was like, I remembered exactly who it was, and yeah, definitely the same person.
Word.
Yeah. Throughout your modeling career, have you ever had to face a challenge that you needed to overcome, like an insecurity or like moving up to the next level in your career, or even anything else that's like not necessarily related to your modeling career that you had to a challenge that you had to overcome? I call this the rising phoenix era of your career.
I'm not sure. I've never really been like a goal-oriented person. Like when people are like, "Well, like, what are your goals this year?" Or "Did you make any New Year's resolutions?" Or "Do you have a 5-year plan?" I'm like, haha, no.
Yeah,
My boyfriend and I on for New Year's were like, let's take 2 vacations this year. Like that's our goal.
that's cool.
But and like I I never really had like deep insecurities. Like I have pretty fine hair and I've always like been jealous of people who have like long luscious hair. My hair just like breaks off at some point. Not necessarily like an insecurity, but something that I would change about myself physically.
Hmm.
Um, but I think coming to whatever I do without expectation like leads into not feeling like I need to like make it to the next level. When I first started modeling, it was definitely like a I need to make a website and like hustle this, be professional about it if I want to, I guess, take it to the next level, like be like work as a professional model. But after that, I mean, like, I feel like I've kind of coasted.
That's good. That's kind of a mentality shift then, where you initially are like, all right, I've got to, get all this squared up so that I can, start to make it. And then you felt at a certain point, you're like, all right, I'm happy. This is my level of making it, and I'm happy here. I don't need to overachieve.
Yeah, I mean, I think that being content with your life is being present and just like being happy with where you're at. And not to say like people who have like goals or milestones they want to reach aren't happy with their lives, but for me, not having something that I'm like really reaching towards helps me be present.
Yeah, I can dig that because there's like an element of workaholism, which is like an act of addiction when it comes to like always needing to be productive and take up your time with these activities.
Yeah, I love having a day where I have nothing to do and I can just like spontaneously do whatever I feel like doing. I think also, I mean, like, I know that you and I share some similarities in this, where like I had really strict parents growing up, and I went to church sometimes 3 days a
Oh
week,
yeah.
and there was a lot expected of me in school. Like I had to get A's, and if I got a B, it was like fine, but like it wasn't good. And I was in the international baccalaureate program. I was on honor roll. I did the debate. I was in debate. I was a varsity athlete, and so having so much of my time managed like that is not wouldn't be my preference, but it's something that I felt like I had to do.
So you had a really strict kind of parents that had really high expectations, and they were
Hmm.
religious. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And my parents aren't like fundamental Christians or like if I have any bias in this world, it is definitely about Christianity. And I think of a lot of people of the boomer generation unknowingly racist and have like they're unaware of their bigotry, whether it's towards women or towards people who are maybe homeless or people of color. But like my parents, I think really see themselves as advocates for like immigrants, advocates for people who are disadvantaged,
Oh.
and are absolutely have like no like cognizant bias towards gay people
Oh.
or trans people. I talked to my parents know someone who's trans, and like their language around it was clunky, but like, you know, they're living their life. My parents don't care.
But they have good intentions around that.
Yeah. Versus I think, you know, a lot of Christians hold like obvious bigotry.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Like
have a problem with
overt
that too.
bigotry.
There are some Christian people that I know that are like welcoming and kind to people who are different than them,
Absolutely.
but I would say a vast majority of, institutions controlled by Christian people are of the type that are judgmental and gatekeepy.
Yeah, and I mean like the church that I grew up going to is it's a covenant church. It's really like Swedish American centered, which I appreciated. Like I learned a lot about like my heritage growing there, growing up in the church. But like Swedish Americans tend to be, and I don't know if this is true of Swedish people, like I have no idea, but Swedish Americans tend to be like really cagey about politics, and like sermons were very open ended and like you can believe whatever you want and be here. And it's on Capitol Hill, like the gay neighborhood of Seattle.
Oh, that's chill.
And like I stopped believing in God when I was like 13, and I didn't go to church as immediately after like leaving my parents' house. But probably like 5 years later, they like being gay became like a conversation nationally for the Covenant Church. And the church I grew up going to voted in their first gay members, and 30% of the church left. And like I
Oh.
kind of always assumed that my like the people I went to church with were of the same ideology that my parents were, which is like Christ, like, you know, accepted everyone and
Yeah.
loved everyone. And I was really surprised that that many people that I knew growing up were like overt bigots. They just never talked about their politics.
Yeah. Yeah, that's disappointing.
Yeah,
The church that
but you know,
the church that I was raised in openly had sermons that were anti-gay, and they also different like the youth pastor and his wife to this day, like the youth pastor that was, my youth pastor when I was there, has a YouTube channel where they're talking about anti-trans and anti-gay
ugh,
stuff. Like,
that's hard.
yeah, so it was, yeah, really bizarre that I grew up in that environment.
Yeah. I mean, and like, I had a friend point out to me recently that misogyny is really the root of all bigotry. And if you look at how a society treats women, they're going to treat everyone else that is a minority, whether it's like skin color or being gay or an immigrant or what have you, like shit.
Yeah.
And like, I think that's true of a lot of Christianity, that women are treated less than, and it might not be like might not be overt, but you know, I don't know about you, but I was still taught like deference to men, and it took me a very long time into adulthood to undo that.
Yeah. And so as you're modeling, a lot of photographers who are hiring you are men, and a lot of them
Hmm.
probably are Christian too. Have you felt that there's like any kind of inner battles like while you're going through modeling, with it being somewhat of a patriarchal, it could be seeming as a misogynistic industry?
I think my like specific hang up was in like romantic relationships,
Hmm.
because like, and like the like racist photographer we were talking about, I I try to have open conversations with people who I do not share political beliefs with, because being defensive and angry immediately gives no space for that person to change their mind.
Yeah.
So I try and have like open-ended conversations where like, you know, I'm not going to agree with them, but I'm going to share like my political beliefs, and we can have a reasonable conversation about like politics or social issues. And I mean, like, it can be uncomfortable, definitely. definitely shot with a lot of people who are pro-Trump, and it's like, ugh, but why? Tell me why. Tell me why. I'll tell you why you're wrong.
And then our industry as a whole, when it came to our images on social media and on places like Patreon, was all affected as a result of people in Christianity in politics through the
Oh
Sesta
yeah,
Fasta, right?
definitely. I can't remember the name of the organization, but it's like it's something to do with like Christian fundamentalism that was like strongly behind that.
Yeah. It was supposed to be for anybody that's listening to the podcast that is like, what the hell are they talking about? There was basically in, what was it, 2018? Yeah, 2018. Sorry,
I
I was just
think
getting a
so.
call and I had to turn it off. There a bill that was pretty
No
much
problem.
saying that anything, any imagery or any activity on the internet that might be suspicious of sex trafficking would be the host of the website could be shut down. So like if they had imagery on Facebook that looked suspicious that it could be sex trafficking, then Facebook could be taken down. So all these platforms got really strict on their policies and suspicious of trafficking could was super vague.
Yeah, I mean, the FOSTA SESTA, I looked it up, but allowing states and victims to fight online sex trafficking act and stop enabling sex traffickers act. But, and like, it just targeted the sex work and porn industry. Like, Facebook still is the largest distributor of child porn on the internet, and it hasn't been taken down. But people like you and me are targeted on Facebook and Instagram, people who work in porn. And I mean, like, this is true on OnlyFans too. Everyone that's involved has to like sign a release. Like, if you acknowledge that someone who's not
Mm-hmm.
on OnlyFans took the photo of you, you'll get in trouble. Like both of them have like both the photographer and the model have to be on OnlyFans and have like signed a waiver. And that's true in the porn industry, like bigger porn, you know what I mean? Where even the sound guy on set has to have signed a waiver that says that like they are consensual and that they were, and like that's on the surface level not a bad thing, that everyone it should be that no one's being taken advantage of, but instead it really hurts smaller people.
Yeah, if you're trying to make income on the internet and you're like, posting a photo that might be for like on my end, the way that I personally experience this is if I posted a photo that was completely clothed, but like a pretty photo of me that was one photo from a whole gallery of images that was on my Patreon, I would say, just did this amazing photo set. You can find the rest on my Patreon. Well, selling images that have nudity on another website is falling under their
Yeah.
vague guise of sex trafficking because selling nudes, according to that bill that was written and enacted in 2018, falls under that vague terms of sex trafficking.
Yep.
So it made a bunch of us models had to come together and be like, okay, according to the law now, we're all sex workers. If you're a nude model, even if you're not doing sexually charged imagery.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, I create like nude photos for artists to paint. You see naked women in museums, and guess what? Almost all of the images I post that are of paintings that people have done get flagged. Like the only photo I've had taken down in the last year and a half was a painting.
What the heck?
Yeah, it's fucking
And then the point of the whole law, it looks like it's supposed to help cut down the sex trafficking industry. But what it really did was make it so that people who are in sex trafficking who are looking for help can't go on like private blogs
yeah,
and like type out the words saying stuff that they're looking for help because of their situation
yeah.
because those phrases are flagged for suspicion of sex
And they
trafficking.
shut down Backpage. Like Backpage
They shut
was,
down Backpage.
a resource for sex workers to check with other sex workers to make sure that this person they're going to see hasn't like, you know, assaulted anyone. Yeah, like you said,
Yeah.
it's made it more dangerous for people who are
It's
in
made
the
it more
industry.
dangerous. And it's made it harder to actually help people through like conversations on the internet to get them out of it and save them if they are in a trafficking situation and not a consensual sex work situation.
Yeah, and it hasn't cut down on sex trafficking. Like there's statistics that you can look up. I like got into it with my boyfriend recently and I was like, um, I know what I'm talking about. You're having a reaction, but like let me look up statistics for you because this is true.
And it sucks because when that law is like, oh, do we want to vote for this law to be put into action or not? And if you don't know anything about how it's going to make an impact on the creative community, or if you don't give a shit about that, for example, like, of course you're going to vote for that because you're like, yeah, of course I want to, knock down sex trafficking. Like, who would say no to that,
Yeah, exactly. I think I don't remember his last name, but there's a senator in Oregon. I think his name is Ron. That is the only person. I think him and maybe one other person voted against it. But yeah, I mean, like, sex trafficking. I mean, like, even if the politicians knew what they were voting for, it was easy for like constituents and like regular people to be like, obviously, sex trafficking is bad, and like sex trafficking is bad, but you have to read the fine print. It's the same thing that's happening with this the TikTok policy that they're trying to push through. It doesn't
Oh.
just include TikTok. It includes like privacy on every platform, but people don't read the fine print.
Oh, see, I don't know too much about that. I know that they tried to ban TikTok a few years ago, but TikTok remained. And at
Yeah.
the time, I had a really popular TikTok page before it got deactivated, and I was like, "Oh no, don't take my TikTok away!" But it remained. I don't know about how things are going to get affected now. Sometimes I feel like the news is like conflating this, oh, they're going to take this away from you just to piss people off and get people to talk about it. And I'm sure that there are like, things that I could read as far as articles that have smaller details that kind of back up the fact that these things are true, but I'm also like, how much of this is made up just to piss off a lot of people that have TikTok that are like, oh, don't take my TikTok away.
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely unlike FOSTA and SESTA, uh, the majority of people, maybe not the majority, but a lot of people are like, my TikTok, it's personal to them. Like they have something that's stake in it. And so like you're right, like it becomes a more personal issue and they're more likely to look into what it's about. But I don't think that mainstream media has really pushed anything about what the rest of the bill is like. Like that's the quiet side. It's the yeah pushing TikTok and like sensationalism.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of people make money on TikTok. I used to make good money on the TikTok page that I had just because I had a lot of action on there. So
Yeah,
whatever.
the social media that people end up relying on. I mean, I
Yeah.
definitely do.
I'll end the TikTok conversation in a second, but this is relevant. I saw a TikTok video from a guy that his job is to film for a news station, and he had his own TikTok channel that had like the stuff that didn't make it onto the news that he still thought was important enough to share the story on his TikTok page. And his
Yeah.
TikTok page got like massively viral, and everybody was watching it. And he was saying that news stations are threatened by TikTok because it captures your attention better and it's
Hmm.
making other individuals money where they want to be making your money instead. So that might have something to do with it.
Oh, I'm sure that has something to do with it, and also controlling the narrative. I
Right.
mean, like, you'll see the same headline or like very similar across many different newspaper news outlets. And so being able to share information, I mean, like, this is true on Twitter too, especially in 2020, where there's information being shared that is true that politicians and then people, I mean, like the oligarchs of the world don't want you to see because it uh, threatens their position.
Totally. Wow, we totally went on a massive bunny trail, but I find it very fascinating because our lives and our careers are affected by policies.
Absolutely.
And whether or not you have TikTok, a lot of models do use TikTok to, gain traction for their marketing and stuff
Yeah.
too. So yeah, it's all relevant.
It's all wrapped up. Yeah, I mean, like, do you remember when, I mean, like, I'm sure you do, when OnlyFans was like, we're not going to support sex workers anymore. And they like
Yeah.
walked it back within the week because they were like, oh, fuck.
You know,
That's how we're making money.
a few people who have really popular OnlyFans pages told me that their management companies said that that was a PR stunt, and I'm like, well, that's a
Huh.
horrible one because a lot of people left OnlyFans.
Backfired. Yeah, definitely
Yeah.
backfired.
And that was around the time that celebrities started making pages and like scamming their followers. Like, what was it? Bella Thorne said that she was going to start posting nudes on her OnlyFans, and she scammed a bunch of people for like a $200 mass locked
Damn.
message. And it was an implied nude, not a full nude, when she advertised it as nude. So,
Yep. Not, I mean, like, think a lot of celebrities at some point were like, oh, I can monetize myself on OnlyFans, and I don't know if conned is the right word, but definitely led people to believe that they're gonna get more than they'd see on Instagram.
yeah. And when that happened, you've never opened an OnlyFans, is that correct?
No, I had an OnlyFans for a while. It's definitely a
Oh, you
better
did?
platform than Patreon, but
It's
I
easier to
had
use for sure.
definitely, and like tipping and all of that. I have a Patreon now for art modeling, because way more artists are on Patreon than OnlyFans. Um, but I never made a lot of money doing it, and it's a fuckload of work. When people
Yeah.
are like, "I'm gonna start an OnlyFans and make money," I'm like, "Ha ha ha."
Yeah. Good luck. It is
Yeah,
work.
good luck. It's a lot of work, and you definitely have to have an outside um, like stream of people coming in. Like if you don't have a social media platform with at least 10,000 followers, like it's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah, it will be hard. But the reason I asked is I was going to ask if you remembered a few years ago when celebrities like Bella Thorne had OnlyFans and they were kind of tricking their fans into thinking they're selling nudes. That caused OnlyFans to create a new policy where there was like a capped amount that you could set your locked PPV messages at. And I
Oh.
don't know if they've changed that back to normal since, but I think that because Bella Thorne sent out that mass message for $200, and a lot of people like paid for it, and then they requested a refund after they were unhappy with the result. Uh,
Mm.
and I think that they capped the PPV after that. They made a new rule saying it couldn't be more than $100 or something that was similar to that.
Yeah, I didn't know that, but I mean, like, my paid messages were probably like $10 or something like that.
Yeah, if somebody ordered like a longer custom video, a lot of people charge more than $100. So you'd have to ask them, okay, unlock the message, but also send me a tip for this additional amount because I can't. You can send locked messages for higher amounts now, but at that time when that happened, that really affected a lot of people's like method of business on OnlyFans.
That's fucked up, and I think like indicative of other celebrities like ruining. I mean, maybe not ruining is not that's dramatic, but affecting the income of other people on
Yeah,
OnlyFans. But I'm
yeah.
also it kind of it on some level it makes me a little happy that they were also penalized. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? At least
yeah.
it wasn't affecting just smaller creators because I mean like if you look at Instagram as an example, like I see nipples on Instagram sometimes by like famous celebrities versus like my
Mm-hmm.
photos where I'm fucking wearing underwear get flagged,
Yeah, yeah, I'm
you
upset
know.
about that as well. I see it all the time, like on Playboy's page, they can like barely scribble out the nipple, and I can't even post like a bra and panty photo sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. I've stopped posting photos where it's like censored with a scribble or like a black bar or something like that because they always get
Same.
removed.
Yeah, I can't risk my account anymore. I've been deactivated too many times.
So many times. You've been deactivated so many times.
Yeah, I think it's been 15 times now.
Jesus
So,
Christ.
yeah, it really sucks 'cause I wonder if people think that I quit modeling nude, which is definitely not the case. Like
Yeah.
other people can easily post a full frontal nude photo of me if they just delete my nipple and vagina,
Yeah.
which I think is a really weird, creepy form of censoring, but whatever. It works
Yeah.
for them, but it won't work for me.
Definitely not. Didn't you get a post deleted where like you're just in like a full like legs covered nude bodysuit?
Yeah, I've also had an image that wasn't even a photo. It was just like giant pixelation that didn't even hardly look like a human at all. It wasn't even a photo of me, but the I posted like a complete pixelation mosaic thing, and then the caption was about how I was upset about getting a censored image taken down, and that post got taken down. It didn't even look like a person. Like the blocks were so big. It was like it looked like a Lego, and that got taken down. I was
Shit
like,
is
what
so
the fuck?
frustrating.
I know. uh, yeah. So, I mean, social
Again,
media is tough
politics
for that.
affects
Yeah,
us
politics,
every day.
and it's extremely. I've heard that there are like actual logs in Instagrams behind the scenes of what they can see that nobody else can see, where they have people who are they do run like porn websites outside of their Instagrams that might have a link tree in their bio, and they're all being profiled and like policed really heavily for that kind of stuff. Like you can't post like booty shorts, like if the butt is the focus of the photo, like that
Hmm.
is potentially going to take your whole account down, stuff like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
anything that they deem sexual at all. I wonder, my account has taken such a hard hit. Like, I have 30 something thousand followers. I used to get like, at least 1,000 likes, if not like around 3,000 per photo. And like, I'm
Yeah.
lucky to get 500. Like, no one sees my posts. I I've heard that that's been true for a lot of people and not just people, like not just models.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, it's definitely the same for me too. I think that they want you to start paying to promote your posts or whatever.
I did once. Okay, so Instagram said I had a $10 credit to try like a paid post, and I did it. It got zero traction, and they charged me $10. It's like,
Oh,
what the fuck? Like, there's no avenue for me to like report this or get like, it's $10. It's not like a ton of money, but like, fuck you, you
yeah.
lied to me.
They said you had a credit, and I'm assuming that's so that they can convince you to sign up for that
Yeah,
program, and then it did jack shit for you.
yeah,
So why would you? And then they stole your money anyway. What the fuck?
yeah. Absolutely
Hilarious.
nothing. Didn't do anything for the post. I think the post that I posted the day before got like 3 times as much likes.
Wow. It's funny. Sometimes I go back in my mind and time and I'm like, when I was 24 was when I first got a smartphone, and a lot of my friends already had smartphones, and I knew that I was going to get addicted to it, and I kind of resisted it for a long time. And now I'm on all these like different social medias, and I feel like I'm sucked into it a lot. And I sometimes I'm like when I'm shooting self portraits, I'm like, oh, I need to shoot something that I can post on
Yeah.
Instagram because my Instagram helps my business. And I feel like I kind of get lost within that, and it affects what I want to do as a whole, as a model, and creativity in general. Have you ever felt that when you're in a creation process
Oh,
because of social
definitely.
media?
I mean, like, my reference photos that I was taking to begin with were all nude. And because, like, back, like, even like just a few years ago, you could post photos that were like from the back, where like you're not showing, like, the implied of like a vulva or a bush or like nipples. And I could get away with posting photos from the back. And I can't post
Yeah,
any of those now. And like I have to take
yeah,
separate photos to post on Instagram when like artists, I mean, like traditionally paint, draw nude people. And some people on Instagram don't even understand that like the nude underwear is supposed to imply that I'm naked. Like, so definitely frustrating and definitely something I shoot specifically for Instagram and something that like inhibits my ability to monetize my account.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because Instagram seems to be the platform that all the creative people are using.
Yeah.
So you want to have your presence on there, but then you're it's I hope that there are better ways to be selling your services and your products where you can share the thing that you're actually hoping and intending to share. The only thing that I can think of is really having a private mailing list, but those are really hard to do too because they're not as eye catchy as just scrolling on Instagram.
No, and like I have a mailing list for reference photos, and I think I have close to a hundred like people who signed up, and it doesn't do anything for me. Like I maybe make
Mm,
like one or two sales off of that a month.
yeah. Like, everybody says, "Oh, why don't you just make your own website if social media is like giving you a hard time?" And it's like, "Yes, I can have a website, but in order to drive traffic to that website, I need social media. It's not search engine optimization anymore. People just
Nope,
don't go to Google when they're looking for stuff like, what they might be interested in. They don't know what to search for to find you.
nope. And
I mean,
like,
unless they're like already know, okay, I'm looking for like a nude photo set that I can, draw. They might not even stumble upon that unless they're specifically looking for it and your SEO was really good.
yeah, yeah. I mean, like, definitely true. I should work more on SEO stuff. And like, I have a friend who like works in marketing who's recommended stuff that I haven't followed
Oh.
through on. I'll send you the blog post.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Yeah, I'm curious too. I'm always trying to get better at that stuff.
I think having a literal blog that you update regularly, and having like your website updated very regularly pulls you like more towards the top. But it seems like even if you're not like paying Google, like it sucks for you.
Yeah.
Once upon a time, I had a friend of mine was like, "Yeah, in incognito mode, you when I type in your name, like your page is like in the top three," and I'm like, "That's cool, but it's my name, you know,
Yeah,
you
people would
know."
have to be typing in your name to find you specifically.
Yeah,
But if they're looking for the products that you're selling, which isn't necessarily like, oh, I want to buy pictures of Diana,
yeah,
like,
exactly.
yeah. So it kind of negates the argument that you should just start your own website to combat the social media issues that a lot of us creators have.
Oh, and like as far as I know, um, there's no website hosting platform where you can have a subscription, like an OnlyFans or something.
Yeah. Oh, and then it gets into a different thing because if you're selling stuff on your own website and there's any nudity involved in it, like nipple, like, even if it's artistic, the payment processors are going to give you a hard
Ooh, I
time.
haven't had that problem so far.
Oh,
No,
really? That's
because
good.
my website definitely has nude photos for sale for reference photos. But I don't know. I
Okay.
My website's through format.com, which is like it's built specifically for artists. And like I think when it was first debuted, it was for photographers specifically. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, where like the platform itself is like whatever, we don't give a fuck, we're for artists. But it's all
Yeah, as long as it's not explicit or whatever.
yeah, I don't know, but it's definitely all processed through PayPal.
Okay, yeah. I know that PayPal was breathing down the neck of Patreon for their artistic
Mhm.
nudity that might be questionable.
Yeah, and I know people
So,
who've had their PayPal shut down for sure.
same. It hasn't happened to me yet, knock on wood.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, crazy. Well, I usually do the podcast for like about an hour, a little bit more, so we're about at
Okay.
time. Is there anything else that you wanted to chat about before we go?
I don't know. Nothing comes to mind.
Well, I feel like we could talk all day, and I feel like almost every podcast that I have, I definitely feel like that.
Yeah, I mean, we have so much in common and there's so much to talk about in the modeling world. The camaraderie in the freelance modeling. Like we just so many of us have similar experiences and it's easy to talk about for forever.
Yeah. It's cathartic to talk about too, because often other people not in the industry
Have no
can't
idea.
relate.
Yeah, I'm sure that like
Yeah.
do you have a similar experience when someone's like, "Well, what do you do for work?" I'm like, "Well, I'm a model and photographer." I say photographer now, and I think more people understand that. But when you tell, I really avoided telling people I was a model for a long time because, like, the conception of like what that means is, I don't think, positive for a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely. They'll look at you
Hmm.
funny and then they'll be like, "Well, what kind of model?" Especially I'm 5'2", so it's like, obviously you're lying to me.
Or just like, so, I mean, definitely people are like, "Oh, so you you're in ads and in runway," and like I have done commercial modeling, but it's definitely not the bulk of what I do. And uh I mean, like, I think when people think of model, they think of like, very tall, thin, sculpted, and like thin, but like that's about where that ends for me. I think people look at you and you're like, "You're a model? Okay. Hmm. All right.
Yeah. Or very young looking.
Yeah, that too.
Being freelance and like being able to like chat with other people who kind of do the same thing that don't fall into that cookie cutter is it is nice.
It is nice, and I think it's one of the huge perks of being a freelance model is that having something unique about you only helps you like further your career.
Yeah.
Like way
Yeah, for
before like plus size models were in like mainstream modeling world, mainstream media, like fuller sized women had lots of opportunity in freelance modeling.
yeah.
I mean, not the same amount because sizeism or whatever is definitely still a thing, but um,
Yeah.
it was definitely more prevalent than it was in agency modeling.
Yeah, I think it seems that freelancing in general is just better for like the world because you don't have to conform to certain cookie cutter standards.
Definitely.
Right on, Diana.
Yeah, thanks for talking to me.
Yeah, yeah, thanks for doing this. I'm really happy to have you, and I'll probably hit you up sometime later in the year. Maybe we'll do another episode that's like topical on a specific topic
Cool.
or
That sounds
something.
great.
Yeah. All right. Have a good one.
Yeah, keep doing what you do.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.